Hey there YouTube, this is SJM4306 and I finally got it. So this is the video that everyone's been waiting for. Well, not everyone, I know a couple people in particular have asked a lot. The N64 teardown, so I wanted to show you guys. I can do a separate video on the controller, and maybe if we have time in this video I can show you what's inside one of these cartridges. But yeah, so first step. Let's open this port and get the memory expansion out. These are a pain to get out without the tool, but I found you can kind of cheat a little bit if you use one of these pry tools and you just kind of work it back and forth, and eventually it'll break something? No. Eventually it'll sort of come out. Yeah, these are a pain to get out. So yeah, just work it kind of side by side. Unfortunately, I do not have the correct tool to remove these, so this is sort of... There we go. Finally came out. Yeah, and this is the memory expansion. Doubles the available memory for texture, like higher resolution textures and whatnot. There's just memory chips in there and heat sinking, and that's it. Just goes in parallel with the original memory. And yeah, this is my limited edition Jungle Green console. So what you are going to want is a game bit driver. So this guy here, nope, sorry, I lied. It's the larger one. So you can buy these off eBay for pretty cheap. So I just get them. And I wish I brought a screwdriver. Give me 1 second. Through the magic of editing, I magically created a screwdriver out of nothing. So anyway, we're just gonna open... Let's see, there's 6 screws on the bottom. They're pretty easily identifiable. So yeah, this is the Funtastic Series N64, and I believe the video encoder it has, I don't think you can actually RGB mod this model, but I do have a original smoke colored one that I believe you could. So if I ever wanted to, I could RGB mod these, and so they could output much nicer looking images in composite, which is what they did stock. So yeah, I just have the last screw out now, and these feet, interestingly enough, just lift out, and they're a different color than the unit. So we'll just set that aside, try to get all the screws out, and there we go. So now we just flip it back over, and we can just lift the top right off. It has this clear, I guess, dust guard, interestingly enough. There's like the little doors, and then there's kind of the tray underneath to catch everything, to make sure nothing gets in, and it covers everything but the cart. Interesting that they made it clear. So yeah, it's pretty cool. We got our power LED here, which is just a standard 5mm. Yeah, that looks about right. And many screws. So I'm going to fast forward through this bit once I get all these screws out. So yeah, give me a second. Okay, so once we have that off, we can just sort of slide the heatsink it back, and this is just aluminum bracket, pretty light, nothing crazy, and you can see kind of the top of the shielding tab. So now we can get through with taking off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 screws. These 2 screws will need to be released in order to lift the board out, as well as these 4 in the back here for the ports for strain relief. So I'll do that right now. Okay, so everything's out. Now we should be able to just lift out, let's see if I remember right. Yeah, So there's a shielding plate here. We should be able to kind of lift the front out. That's separate, as well as this guy here. So in the back there's another one of those shielding plates and kind of a shroud for the memory card expansion port. They really went to town making sure that, you know, no RF, you know, gets in here. Oh, I missed a screw. Great. So anyway, yeah, so we have our power switch here, which is just a slide switch, as well as the reset, which is a momentary. Our LEDs here, pretty easy to do an LED mod if you want to change the color of that. And interestingly enough, they kind of molded this shroud, I guess you could call it, for the video output and whatnot, AV out, sort of separately, I guess to make it easier to remove. Interestingly enough, also there's a expansion port on the bottom, as well as these two kind of metal mounting lugs, and this is for the N64DD, the disk drive that was only released in Japan, that was not successful by any stretch of the imagination, and obviously never came out here. Anyway, yeah, you can see the expansion port on the bottom. Interestingly enough, it kind of plugs in to a socket with this main controller port, so you can actually pull off the controller ports on either side. I'm not going to do that because, you know, rather not if I don't have to. But yeah, interesting. If you wanted to mod the system, that's an easy way to clean it or replace the cartridge slot. It's not soldered. So yeah, here's the top mounting plate to which all these heat sinks are mounted. And these guys are just kind of aluminum spacers, I believe they're aluminum. And so they just get the heat from the chip to the top and then to this outer mounting bracket for cooling. Very interesting kind of multi-level design, as opposed to something like the PS1 where it's just kind of one metal plate that touches it, sort of like the shielding plate, very thin, and that's it. So yeah, we can carefully pull the bottom shielding plate away, kind of set that in there. And so there's pretty much nothing on the bottom except for lots and lots of local decoupling capacitors. We have our two chunky controller ports. These would have had to be made custom, obviously. They solder right into the board, nice and sturdy. And yeah, interestingly enough, they have labels for everything. For, you know, plus 5 volts, R, G, Y, V, L, C. So these are like a composite sync and, you know, different video outputs, left and right, L and R for audio. G is probably ground, R, or 5 volts is obviously 5 volts. So yeah, they did a very good job. Nintendo has consistently done a very good job of labeling things. For instance, they label 3.3 volts, the power rail. They label 12 volts here. So, you know, they're kind of going above and beyond what I would expect to make it easier for, you know, the people servicing these consoles to do their jobs. So kudos for them. And lots of test points and very nice construction. And you'll notice, though, that the actual system itself is very small and actually can be cut down much smaller, because most of this is just wasted space, sort of, the grounding tabs on the sides. So you can actually cut this down to be a very small size, and that's what a lot of people have done to make portable N64s. So you can see here, so underneath this heatsink, there are actually two chips. And those are sort of memory style chips. They actually are memory. That's the RAM for the main processor. So I'm not sure which one. One's the main processor and others sort of like a graphics processor chip. I'm not too nuanced in terms of the architecture of the N64. I haven't really looked at it, but I believe that's what's going on with these two big chips here. And as I said, this is just the memory, and you'll notice that everything passes straight through, kind of straight down from this main chip, so this has to be the main processor then, straight through to the external RAM, and then straight through to the expansion memory. So that's what's going on there. We have a couple of support chips. So we have what looks to be a local power supply regulator chip, and this pad here is labeled V-term, interestingly enough. We have a couple crystal oscillators here. Let's see, a couple support chips. I think, let's get this right. One of these chips, I believe this chip is the video encoder. So this takes the the generated video from the main processor and generates composite video output, as well as it can do RGB on certain models. So you can mod it for that. There's some power supply stuff going on here, and I believe this is a audio amplifier. So that's the audio output. You can kind of guess. It looks sort of symmetrical. And we have some glue logic here. Probably, I'm gonna guess, for handling the controller ports. Maybe some protection, input protection. Yeah, other than that, there's really not that much going on here. There's just literally a handful of chips, and everything, all the magic happens inside, these larger chips here. The rest are just kind of either supply chips or just handling audio, video, or controller inputs. So yeah, very, very, very simple. So yeah, this has been my teardown. So I'm gonna go and fast forward, put this all back together, and we will be good to go.